We live in interesting times.
For the headlines.
China says reports of Beijing planning to replace Hong Kong leader Carrie Lam is a political rumor with ulterior motives.
A murder suspect whose proposed deportation to Taiwan was a catalyst for massive anti-government protests in Hong Kong was released from prison Wednesday, but despite saying he wants to face justice, will remain in the city for now.
The top U.S. diplomat in Ukraine pours fuel on President Trump's impeachment probe with a detailed account of how the president pushed Kiev to discredit one of his main political rivals, withholding U.S. military aid to exert pressure.
And Russian and Syrian guards are expected to move into northeastern Syria to ensure Kurdish fighters are withdrawing from border areas with Turkey after a Turkish-Russian deal wresting control of the Kurds' entire heartland.
I'm Alma Angeles, wherever you're watching from around the world. Thank you very much for joining us.
We welcome our viewers here in the Philippines and around the world. Good evening, everyone. I'm Sam Cepeda.
And now to the news. A murder suspect whose case triggered Hong Kong's huge summer protests apologized to the victim's family after his release. Chang Tong Kai, 20, is wanted in Taiwan for the murder of his pregnant girlfriend during a holiday the two Hong Kongers took there in February last year. Take a look.
做咗啲無可挽救嘅錯事，為到佢哋帶嚟咗好大嘅傷痛痛苦，願意為咗自己嘅衝動，為咗自己犯下嘅錯事，自首返去台灣服刑。
Taipei had said it was Hong Kong's responsibility to put him on trial. He fled back to Hong Kong, where Taiwanese police were unable to apprehend him because there's no extradition agreement between the two territories. The Hong Kong government said in a statement late Monday that Chan had decided to surrender himself voluntarily to Taiwan and that his case could be handled independently without a judicial assistance deal. His case is the one that prompted the introduction of the extradition bill, which would have allowed the city to extradite suspects to any territory, including the authoritarian mainland, and that caused the massive anti-government protests.
The Financial Times reported Wednesday Beijing is drawing up a plan to remove Hong Kong's beleaguered chief executive Carrie Lam. Take a look. The pro-Beijing leader has faced sustained criticism from protesters in the semi-autonomous city. So far, the Chinese central government has given its support to her and the Hong Kong police, calling the demonstrators rioters and condemning the violence. Beijing rejected the report as a political rumor with ulterior motives.
To address the central issue driving the protests.
亦都有80%。咁其實你會唔會因應呢個結果去做一啲
？Protests are getting even stronger according to the polls. So and that
開場白都提到咧區議會選舉，咁我想好簡單問，光復香港時代。
这是别有用心的政治谣言。中央政府将坚定支持林郑月娥行政长官和特区政府依法施政，尽快止暴制乱，恢复秩序。
Hong Kong has now been battered by 20 weeks of protests, and with no political solution in sight, clashes have intensified each month. Earlier this month, Lam, who has refused to grant any major concessions to protesters, invoked a colonial-era emergency law to ban face masks, setting off a new wave of protests and vandalism that shut down much of the city's transport network. If President Xi Jinping decided to go ahead with a plan to remove Lam, the report said her replacement would be installed by March.
The backlash over a DreamWorks animated movie is growing in this region because of a map that portrays China's contested claim in the South China Sea. Malaysia has reportedly ordered the scene to be cut in the film Abominable. Now, this was after its distributor Sunday said it could not comply with censors' demands to cut a controversial scene showing Beijing's disputed claims in the South China Sea. It's the third Southeast Asian country to take offense at that map. The movie was released in Vietnam on October 4, but the country's main cinema franchise said it would no longer show the film after it was notified about the map. The Philippines has also called for the scene to be cut as well. The Philippines Foreign Secretary Teodoro Locsin called for the segment to be cut off, and he said, quote, "Of course, they should cut out the offending scene," unquote. Vietnam also pulled the Universal Pictures movie from theaters days ago. The animated film about a Chinese teenager helping a Yeti return to his home shows a chart featuring the 9-dash line, which sets out Beijing's expansive claims to the Flashpoint waters. By including the U-shaped line, the movie, a joint production by Universal Pictures subsidiary DreamWorks and China's Pearl Studio, has stumbled into a festering road that has long been a source of friction between Beijing and Southeast Asia.
Tens of thousands of Lebanese protesters kept the country on lockdown, rallying for a sixth consecutive day to demand new leaders. Take a look. Demonstrations were initially sparked by a proposed tax on WhatsApp and other messaging apps. Then it quickly grew into an unprecedented cross-sectarian street mobilization against the political class. The movement has spread to all major cities and into Lebanon's vast diaspora. The cabinet was spurred into passing wide-ranging economic reforms on Monday, but the move failed to win over protesters. On Tuesday morning, the Lebanese army was trying to reopen a number of major roads that have been blocked by demonstrators for days, the state-run national news agency reported. The current demonstrations are believed to be the country's biggest since 2015. People are protesting against deteriorating living conditions, austerity measures, capital flight, and the rise of the deficit and public debt.
Meanwhile, protests continued into the night despite a military-enforced curfew in Santiago, Chile. Chilean President Sebastián Piñera announced a package of social measures aimed at stemming days of protests over economic inequality. He also apologized to the nation for failing to anticipate the outbreak of social unrest. He said his government had received with humility and clarity the message Chileans have given us. The leader vowed to increase the universal basic pension by 20%, cancel a recent 9.2% increase in electricity bills, and propose a law that would see the state cover the costs of expensive medical treatment. Piñera also pledged a state subsidy to increase minimum wage to 350,000 pesos a month, or $482 a month, and said the government would introduce health insurance for medication, which is among the most expensive in the region. The unrest was sparked by a rise in metro prices, but it has since evolved into wide-ranging grievances over austerity and inequality. 15 people have died and more than 5,000 have been arrested. More than half of Santiago's 136 metro stations also suffered heavy damage during last week's protests. Around 50 schools and 10 universities in the capital remain closed but hospitals and clinics operated normally. At Santiago's International Airport, meanwhile, South American airline giant LATAM brought out deck chairs for passengers stranded by flight cancellations caused by the protests. Chile's Football Association said it was suspending its professional leagues for a second successive weekend.
Indonesian investigators told victims' families in a briefing Wednesday that mechanical and design problems with a Boeing flight control system were key factors in the crash of a Lion Air plane last year. All 189 passengers and crew were killed when the Boeing 737 MAX slammed into the Java Sea shortly after takeoff from Jakarta last October. A few months later, the model was grounded worldwide after an Ethiopian airline 737 MAX crashed, killing 157 people aboard. Preliminary investigations into both accidents implicated the Variance Maneuvering Characteristics Augmentation System, or MCAS, or MCAS, an automated flight handling mechanism that pilots were unable to control. Details of a final report on the Lion Air crash, expected to be made public this week, were shown to grieving relatives at a closed-door meeting in the Indonesian capital. The report said the U.S. Federal Aviation Administration lacked the manpower and expertise to fully evaluate the jet's MCAS when it certified the plane.
Indonesia's new cabinet members were introduced at an informal presentation on the palace steps Wednesday, with President Joko Widodo tapping his election arch rival, a former general with a checkered rights record, as defense minister. President Widodo, popularly known as Jokowi, beat Prabowo Subianto in April elections to secure another term as president of the world's third biggest democracy. The victory followed a bitter campaign plagued by mudslinging fake news online and claims from Subianto that the government staged a massive, systematic and fraudulent election, which sparked deadly post-poll riots. At least 9 people died in that unrest. But the pair have since appeared together in apparently friendly public meetings, including on Monday when Subianto, 68, hinted that he and another member of his Gerindra opposition party were tapped for top government posts. Rights group Amnesty International Indonesia earlier warned against appointing the former general to a top job, saying it would mark, quote, a dark day for human rights. Subianto, a former son-in-law of Indonesia's late dictator Suharto, was accused of abuses, including the kidnapping and disappearance of several pro-democracy activists in the lead-up to massive street demonstrations that brought down the regime in 1998.
Associate Justice Diosdado Peralta is the successor of retired Chief Justice Lucas Bersamin. Bersamin reached the compulsory retirement age of 70 on October 18. The 1987 Constitution mandates the President to appoint a new top magistrate within 90 days from vacancy.
The Supreme Court has officially received a copy of the appointment papers of Diosdado M. Peralta as 26th Chief Justice of the Philippines, succeeding the retired Chief Justice Lucas P. Bersamin as Chief Justice. We would just like to confirm that the 26th Chief Justice of the Philippines is Chief Justice Diosdado Madalang Peralta.
Peralta is the most senior in terms of experience in the High Tribunal. Prior to his stint at the Supreme Court in January 2009, Peralta served as presiding judge of the Sandigan Bayan. He was also a presiding judge of the Quezon City Regional Trial Court Branch 95 and a prosecutor in Laoag City and in Manila. He bested Associate Justices Estela Perlas Bernabe and Andres Reyes Jr., the two other magistrates who made it to the short list for the country's next Chief Justice endorsed by the Judicial and Bar Council. Perlas Bernabe was appointed to the Supreme Court by former President Benigno Aquino III in 2011, while Reyes got a seat at the High Court in 2017. Peralta will take over the helm of the Supreme Court until his mandatory retirement on March 27, 2022. Peralta obtained his undergraduate degree in economics from Colegio de San Juan de Letran and his law degree from the University of Santo Tomas. Peralta, who hailed from Ilocos Norte, started his career in government as an assistant fiscal in Lawag City in 1987. As a member of the High Tribunal, Peralta penned the November 2016 ruling that upholds the legality of the burial of the late dictator Ferdinand Marcos at the Libingan ng mga Bayani in Taguig City. In May 2018, he also voted in favor of the quo warranto petition lodged by Solicitor General Jose Calida against ousted Chief Justice Maria Lourdes Sereno. He was also one of the magistrates who approved in June 2019 the granting of retroactive application of Republic Act 10592 or the expanded good conduct time allowance.
Going now to the United Kingdom, MPs voted on Prime Minister Boris Johnson's Brexit deal. The verdict now is a yes and a no. The first vote on the plan to implement the deal, the withdrawal agreement bill, went the government's way. But the deal, which avoided the Irish backstop by laying out a customs border between Northern Ireland and the rest of the UK, was approved by the House of Commons in a 329-299 vote. It is the first time, though, that there's been a majority in the House of Commons for any Brexit deal. Take a look.
The ayes to the right, 329. The noes to the left, 299.
The ayes to the right, 329. The noes to the left, 299. So the ayes have it. The ayes have it. Unlock.
However, it will not advance to the House of Lords for the moment because in another vote in the timetable to push the plans through Parliament in just 3 days, this time the government was defeated.
The ayes to the right, 308. The noes to the left, 322. So the noes have it. The noes have it. Unlock.
Prime Minister Boris Johnson wants it done this week so he can meet the deadline of October 31st for the UK to leave the European Union. But MPs say they need more time to study the plans.
Tonight, the House has refused to be bounced into debating a hugely significant piece of legislation in just 2 days, with barely any notice and an analysis of the economic impact of this bill. The Prime Minister is the author of his own misfortune. So I make this offer to him tonight. Work with us, all of us, to agree a reasonable timetable, and I suspect this House will vote to debate, scrutinise and I hope amend the detail of this bill. That would be the sensible way forward, and that's the offer I make on behalf of the opposition tonight.
Now, after warning lawmakers that if they voted against the government's timetable, it would pull the bill altogether and push for a general election. Here's Prime Minister Boris Johnson.
And accelerate our preparations for it. And we now face further uncertainty, and the EU must now make up their minds over how to answer Parliament's request for a delay. And the first consequence, Mr. Speaker, is that the government must take the only responsible course and accelerate our preparations for a no-deal outcome. I will speak to EU member states about their intentions until they have reached a decision. Until they have reached a decision, I must say, we will pause this legislation. Our policy remains that we should not delay, that we should leave the EU on October the 31st, and that is what I will say to the EU, and I will report back to the House. And one way or another, we will leave the EU with this deal to which this House has just given its assent. And I thank members across the House for that hard-won agreement.
Now, number 10 Downing Street has left open a prospect of a short extension. That means October 31st deadline would be missed. Meanwhile, the President of the European Council, Donald Tusk, has said he would recommend to other European leaders that they do grant the extension that was requested.
British police said 39 bodies were found near London on Wednesday in the container of a truck, though thought to have come from Bulgaria. Essex police said the people were all pronounced dead at the scene in an industrial park in Grays, east of London. Early indications suggest the victims are 38 adults and one teenager. According to police, the lorry is believed to have come from Bulgaria and entered the UK on Saturday, October 19. A 25-year-old man from Northern Ireland has been arrested on suspicion of murder. The victims are still being identified.
Shortly before 1:40 a.m. today, we received reports that a number of people had been found inside a lorry's container at the Waterglade Industrial Park on Eastern Avenue in Grays. We believe the lorry is from Bulgaria and came into the UK through Holyhead on the 19th of October. Emergency services attended, but sadly all 39 people inside the container had died. Early indications suggest that one of these people was a teenager, the rest are believed to be adults. A murder investigation was launched and the lorry driver, a 25-year-old man from Northern Ireland, was arrested on suspicion of murder and remains in police custody. At this stage we have not identified where the victims are from or their identities, and we anticipate this could be a lengthy process.
The top U.S. diplomat in Ukraine poured fuel on Donald Trump's impeachment probe with a detailed account of how the president pushed Kiev to discredit one of his main political rivals, withholding U.S. military aid to exert pressure. Now, Democrats said the congressional testimony by Bill Taylor was a stunning confirmation of their allegations that President Trump abused his office by seeking foreign help to hurt Democratic candidate Joe Biden in the 2020 presidential elections. In a 15-page opening statement quickly leaked to U.S. media, Mr. Taylor said he was told President Trump wanted Ukraine's President Zelensky to state publicly that he would investigate Biden and his son Hunter for what he said was corruption in the ex-Soviet republic. He also said the U.S. ambassador to the European Union, Gordon Sondland, told him that, quote, everything was dependent on such an announcement, including security assistance. President Trump had earlier admitted to asking Ukraine's government to probe what he says is corruption related to Biden. However, he denies Democrats' allegation that he tried to strong-arm the Ukrainians by linking the delivery of U.S. military aid to his request for an investigation. Meanwhile, President Trump has already branded the impeachment proceedings a coup and a hoax to a witch hunt and a variety of swear words. On Tuesday, he also prompted an uproar by claiming he was the victim of a lynching, a word linked in the United States to the darkest days of slavery's aftermath. More than 3,400 African Americans were lynched between 1882 and 1968, and congressional Democrats reacted with anger. Take a listen.
Given the history in our country, I would not compare this to a lynching. That was an unfortunate choice of words.
So it shows a lot of things about our national media. When it's about Trump, who cares about the process as long as you get him? So yeah, this is a lynching in every sense. This is un-American. I've never seen a situation in my lifetime as a lawyer where somebody's accused of a major misconduct who cannot confront the accuser, call witnesses on her behalf, and have the discussion in the light of the day so the public can judge. It's a joke. I'm going to let the whole world know that if we were doing this to a Democratic president, you would be all over me right now. Not one person has asked me a question. What do you think about the fact that President Trump doesn't know who his accuser is? What do you think about the fact that the Republican minority cannot call witnesses, that everything's done behind closed doors? I can only imagine if this were a Democratic president, what you would be saying to me right now.
That's not the language I would use. It's very clear that what the Democrats are doing here does not have due process. It's not fair in the process. It's not something that this House has done ever in the past.
Oh, but look, Senator Graham said it was a perfect word. The fact is, many people disagree. Many, right, and he's one of my friends. I've known him now for over a decade.
But he says it's not a good choice of word. Do you agree it's not a good choice of word?
But people disagree with what President Trump says all of the time. I would urge people to focus on what he's accomplished for the American.
Russian forces crossed the Euphrates River in Syria and headed for the border with Turkey, state media reported Wednesday, under a deal for the withdrawal of Kurdish forces. The Rossiya 24 television channel and TASS news agency quoted the defense ministry as saying the convoy of Russian military police had crossed the river at noon and advanced towards the Syrian-Turkish border. The agreement will see Russian military police and Syrian border guards facilitate the removal of Kurdish People's Protection Units or Protection Units fighters and their weapons from within 30 kilometers of the Turkey-Syrian border. This withdrawal must be finalized within 150 hours. It was reached after marathon talks between President Recep Tayyip Erdogan and President Vladimir Putin in Russia on Tuesday. It will also see Turkey preserve a safe zone inside Syria about 120 kilometers long and 32 kilometers deep. Russia and Turkey will eventually launch joint patrols along the zone.
Она прекращается, и все будет зависеть от того, насколько будут выполняться договоренности, в том числе по отводу вооружений и отводу сил и средств курдских подразделений, о которых идет. Начиная с 12:00 23 октября 2019 года на сирийскую сторону сирийско-турецкой границы за пределами зоны операции «Источник мира» вводятся подразделения российской военной полиции и сирийской пограничной.
И мы обстоятельно говорили об этом с президентом Турции.
Уважаемые дамы и господа, позвольте, Сочи, 22 октября 2019 года. Президент Российской Федерации Владимир Путин.
And we'll be back with the business news right after this short break. Stay tuned.
Mga kababayan, lalo na sa mga OFWs sa Middle East at North Africa, may good news kami para sa inyo. Mapapanood na ninyo ang Net25 at iba pang Filipino channels na hatid ng OSN sa presyong abot kaya. Libre ng box at installation, walang admin fees at no extra charges. Saktong entertainment na sakto lang sa budget mo. Bumisita na sa pinakamalapit na OSN store o dealer and subscribe now! Sa Net25 at OSN, siguradong at home ka dito.
Vice President of Honda Motor Europe, Tom Gardner, promises a 100% hybrid range by 2022, all the while reiterating concerns about the uncertainty in Europe related to Brexit. Take a look.
we'd already announced 2025 full electrification of the range. We can see that actually customers are moving quite quickly towards cleaner, efficient vehicles. So we're delighted to be announced today. We're pulling forward to 2022 that our full lineup will be electrified. Today we're launching the new Jazz with the new hybrid powertrain, and equally we're announcing the arrival of 6 new models, electrified models, by 2022. So our new hybrids are being built in Japan, in the Yori plant, so we're able to bring them to Europe. Actually, in terms of CRV, we have seen a very good acceptance of that new hybrid powertrain. Over 60% of our sales are hybrid, and customers really appreciate the quality and the experience of our new powertrain.
He also reiterated concerns about the uncertainty about Brexit.
So the Brexit situation is changing day by day, hour by hour. So, we see it moving very fast. Broadly, we welcome the fact that there's a deal on the table now, and we look at the opportunities that represents to give a good, strong UK-EU trade deal. Like any manufacturer, like any business, we really appreciate simplicity and clarity of the regulations and the rules to allow us to trade. We have a very integrated European business, and anything that allows that to have the competitiveness that we need, we welcome.
Thousands of farmers demonstrate on foot at the wheel of their tractors across Germany against government regulations on climate change and agricultural reform, which they say threaten the existence of their business. Here's more.
Man muss sich zusammen an den Tisch setzen, man muss gemeinsam die Ideen entwickeln und muss überlegen, wie kann ich strukturiert nach vorne arbeiten, aber nicht immer nur die Landwirte angreifen, weil das sind eigentlich diejenigen, die letztendlich die Nahrungsmittel produzieren und niemand anderes.
Wir sind doch keine Naturschänder, wir leben doch davon, wir leben in der Natur, wir machen das gern. Und die Verbraucher sollen doch eigentlich mal vernünftig sein, und es geht nicht darum, das Billigste vom Billigsten zu kaufen, egal wie es produziert wird.
Das Insektenprogramm, was wir zum Beispiel vorhaben, das ist für uns eine ziemliche Enteignung. Da dürfen keine Pflanzenschutzmittel mehr eingesetzt werden, Herbizide nicht mehr und biodiversitätsschädigende Insektizide. Und das würde für uns bedeuten, wir können in unserem Landstrich nicht mehr wirtschaften.
Wir sind nach Berlin gekommen, um uns zu zeigen, dass wir auch was können und nicht nur andere. Oben in der Politik, die wissen gar nicht, was bei uns auf den Betrieben los ist und wollen uns was vorschreiben. Wir wollen einfach mitreden. Wir wollen auch unsere Meinung dazu sagen.
Meanwhile, experts and world leaders attended the 2-day World Green Economy Summit in Dubai, where the Assistant United Nations Secretary General for Climate Change, Ovais Sarmad, warned that the world is facing an existential crisis, and he also announced the launch of a regional collaborative center that will serve the entire Middle East and North African region. Take a look.
That we are facing existential crisis, regrettably, is not an exaggeration. It is the truth. Based on what the science, and science is very, very clear in this respect, tells us about the warming of the planet. I'm very pleased to announce that we're establishing a regional collaborative center here in Dubai at this occasion of this summit. And that regional collaborative center will serve the entire region of Middle East and North Africa with the expertise, with the information, with the knowledge that is required for all stakeholders in the region to take informed climate action. We have all the agreements, the policies, the governance, and the tools to take action, but we now must need to enhance that action at all levels: the governments, business, civil society, youth, academia, all have a role to play.
A taste of Macau. Take a look. Portuguese egg tarts are a famous city delicacy. The sweet treat has become popular across China and parts of Asia in recent years. But the tarts have surprisingly a British origin. The tale began 3 decades ago when Essex-born industrial pharmacist Andrew Stowe opened Lord Stowe's Bakery at the southern harbour side village of Cologne. With no original recipe for pastel de nata to use, Andrew experimented with a heavier British custard filling based on a family recipe and Portuguese pastry techniques. The creation initially raised a few eyebrows among Andrew's Portuguese friends in Macau, but the local Chinese community became hooked. The business now churns out 21,000 handmade egg tarts per day from 3 bakeries in Macau, and it also boasts 2 franchises in Japan and Manila. A string of rivals has cropped up in the last 3 decades in Hong Kong, Taiwan, and Singapore. One of the best regarded Macau competitors was set up by Andrew's ex-wife Margaret Wong. She sold her recipe to KFC, who now offer Portuguese egg tarts at outlets across China, a move that has introduced Macau's Portuguese-British hybrid to hundreds of millions more hungry mouths.
So in 1989, recognising there were no Western street-side bakeries, he opened Lord Stowe's Bakery. His intention was to sell bread and birthday cakes, but he'd never sold a birthday cake. Instead, he decided to do something for the local Portuguese community, which was to create a pastel de nata for them. And Andrew didn't have the recipe, so he bastardized the Portuguese egg tart. He used a custard filling that he was familiar with through his mother, but used the Portuguese pastry techniques. So he said to his Portuguese friends here, "I've made pastel de nata," and they said, "That's not a pastel de nata." I always think if he decided to create something that he would sell 21,000 a day, it would have failed. It's just become popular because the Chinese started taking it to their families in Hong Kong. And these people in Hong Kong would then start coming across here and seeking out Andrew's little bakery on the island. And that's how it grew before the days of likes online and all that kind of thing. It was just word of mouth. Just before he passed away in 2006, he was awarded the Medal of Merit from the Macau government for services to tourism, because by then they'd recognised that he'd created an edible icon of Macau, like you say, that's recognised worldwide.
Eagle News International will be right back. Stay tuned.
Tungkulin na MTRCV ang mag-provide na
Precision, accuracy, and dependability in broadcasting are the highlights at the NAB New York 2019. Here's Eliza Gonzalez Manglikmot for the report.
Do you know how it feels like to be a kid in a candy store? Well, that's how those from the broadcast industry are feeling right now here at the National Association of Broadcasters Show New York. From top-of-the-line equipment to disaster response systems to lectures addressing issues broadcasters face today, such as, quote, deepfakes versus trusted content, all here at the Jacob Javits Center. Take a look.
This tech trade show is geared to a specific audience, the broadcaster. NAB puts on display in this two-day event a diverse collection of items that would benefit any news organization. From news gathering vehicles, to video editing software, to sound booths and audio equipment, to lights and things not so high-tech but still very much important, like office furniture.
Before the disaster or after the disaster, we are using data casting technology to provide the people about the disaster-related information to make them prepare for the disaster. Where is the shelters, where they can get the medical treatment and the food supply after the disaster, those kind of things. We are providing that information through the data casting on TV.
So today we're showing off, the new thing we're showing is our quad matrix. It's a modular system of our individual matrix units. So you can have a big, you can have a large source. You can use these quad Fresnel lenses to make it punchier, or you can take them out, and this is compatible with a number of soft boxes. So like a 5-foot or a 7-foot Octa. So you could use it as a soft light or as a harder light. And it's and again, it's modular, so you can pull a single unit out, just 4 screws, and attach it to a yoke, and then use it that way as well.
So Unilumin is one of the largest manufacturers of LED in the world. This happens to be a 0.9 millimeter LED wall. So a 3x3 array of this product, which is U-panel, is native HD. So this is a native HD direct view LED product. Right. So one of the things about direct view LED is it's very bright. It's so traditional displays and backdrops and things like that are LCD. So LCD technology is reflective. So if you see people walk in front of LCD displays, you see a reflection sometimes. Studio lighting and things like that reflect off of the screen, and then brightness also. So you can get really rich color out of these displays. So we can meet Rec 709 and beyond with this technology. You don't have the reflectivity, so it's a really, you'll see a lot of the broadcast studios that are out there have already adopted this technology into their broadcast sets.
Well, what VCC does is really radical. We believe that everybody in the world is walking around with the world's best ENG tool sitting right here in their pocket, other pocket, and of course that's a smartphone. And we believe that we can get a high-quality live remote feed from anywhere in the world in just a few minutes over somebody's smartphone using the connectivity that they have, the device they have, without any downloads at all on the part of the interviewee. So this is a game-breaking technology. It's groundbreaking. We can bring in remotes. We can bring in audience aggregation the same way, and we can actually connect to people's control rooms, or we can produce programs without any control room at all using these remotes by smartphone.
Hello, we are with Benton White of The Whisper Room. Thank you for joining Eagle News.
Thanks for having us, Eliza.
Benton, share with us, what is The Whisper Room?
So The Whisper Room is a modular portable system that you can go in and record a broadcast. It's going to isolate the sound quite substantially. Today we have a 4-foot by 6-foot booth. We call it the Model 4872E. This is a double wall system that's going to help isolate. You can step on in here, and right when you walk in, you can kind of feel the difference.
Yeah.
So this is our studio light. It actually changes colors. We've got a lot of excuse me, guys. We have a lot of other optional features in the booth. This booth comes with a large window, so you can have visibility. It also comes with a series of these panels that you can move around to get the sound that you're looking for. It really helps with the reverberation inside a room. But All of our booths come standard with ventilation. It's going to help out cycle through the host room air so you can stay cool while you're doing your voiceover work. A lot of people use this for recording an audio book, or audiologists use them for hearing tests. There's a whole bunch of applications, really.
Okay, and they come in different sizes.
We have 26 different sizes and 2 levels of isolation. This is one of our smaller booths. They get quite big. Our largest is an 8x16 booth. You could actually fit a whole band in that if you'd like.
And if you want to record them.
And if you want to record them, you got it.
And you said it's modular. So.
This is modular, so each one of these pieces, they bolt together. So Eliza, you and I, we could actually assemble this whole booth in about 3 hours and tear it down in about half the amount of time.
Seeing the latest gear is not the only cool thing here, but the lectures on various topics given by speakers on stages strategically located throughout the venue.
To sustain one's relevance in this industry, one needs to keep up not only with the latest news, but also with the latest technology. But more importantly, delivering information with the sharpest detail, swiftness, and accuracy is the goal everyone here shares. From the NAB Show New York 2019, here in New York City, I am Eliza Gonzalez Manglikmont, 1 with 25.
The Iglesia Ni Cristo held cleanup drives in various parts of Thailand. Our ABC correspondent from Southeast Asia, Cristel Mapa, reports from Bangkok.
A cleanup drive was held in various local congregations in districts of Thailand. Thailand is known for its beautiful beaches, but plastic pollution in coastlines has been a known problem too. Volunteers in Phuket, Sriracha, and Chonburi, where beautiful beaches lies, took their part in picking up trashes. While in Phnom Penh, Cambodia, volunteers clean up the surrounding of the Royal Palace and in the banks of Mekong River, which is known as the 12th longest river in the world. Brooms in their hands and smiles on their faces, volunteers from Ho Chi Minh City, Vietnam, gathered in a public park not just to bond, but more so to help in maintaining its cleanliness.
So how did you feel about joining this activity?
This activity actually made us happy. We overseas Filipino workers here in Vietnam. We all know that we are very hardworking here, that we do not have just one employer. Some of us have multiple employers, like 5 or 6, that every week we are so busy. So this day has been beneficial for us. It is our time to somehow give back to the society that is also helping us, which is Vietnam, and also to have some quality time with the brethren in our faith.
Volunteers in Metro Bangkok area, adults and children, help one another. They were greeted by neighbors as they sweep the vicinity of their community. A Thai woman offered free drinks to volunteers to express her appreciation. This kind of activity shows how members of Iglesia Ni Cristo gives back to the community. A small act with big impact to the neighborhood. They will continue to participate in this kind of activity launched by the church administration. Reporting from Thailand, I am Cristel Mapa. I am 1U25.
Thanks, Cristel.
Thank you, Cristel. Don't forget to like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter and Tumblr. Also, check out our boards and Pinterest and pictures in Instagram. I'm Sam Cepeda. Thanks for joining us.
And that's it for tonight's broadcast. For everyone here on Eagle News, I'm Alma Angeles, and
We're one with 25.